Okay, so here goes. So StarCraft 1 versus StarCraft 2, strategy versus mechanics is something I see brought up from time to time. Um, and I definitely I have some thoughts on it that I wanted to throw out there and see what other people think. But like, okay, so obviously StarCraft 1 has a lot more mechanical play. Okay, so mechanics are like um there's not like a lot of thinking in it, right? It's like you just have to click a lot more to kind of get things done in StarCraft 1. So it's like a very very mechanical game. The thing is StarCraft 2 is one of the most mechanical games in the whole world, but Brood War is like a big level above that because you have to like tell every single worker to mine. You can't there's no multiple building selection, so when you're macroing you have to literally click on every single building. uh it's just it takes a lot mechanically to play, so obviously there's a lot more mechanics there, but people sometimes think like, oh, okay, so well that means there's more strategy in StarCraft 2. uh the thing is I don't quite agree with that. Okay, so uh hear me out here for a moment, and just to make this clear, like I know that I play StarCraft 1, like that's the game that I prefer to play. So I'm sure that some people would be like, oh, this opinion is just so colored because you want to, because you play StarCraft once, so you're just like a nostalgic fanboy or something. And that certainly isn't the case. So just to put this out there for a moment, like I played StarCraft 1 until the day the StarCraft 2 beta came out, like from release to then. And then I didn't play StarCraft 1 for like 10 years until Remaster came out, or however long that was, right? It came out in 2017. The StarCraft 2 beta was like 2009 or 2010 early. So I guess it's like 7 or maybe a little bit more years. I literally played 2 games against Tasteless in like 2016. And that was it. That was all I played. We went 1-1. That was all I played in that time. So I played StarCraft 2 only during that time. And I played a ton of StarCraft 2. So I did, start playing obviously again with Remastered quite a bit and really love playing it. So I continue to play it, but that doesn't mean that I very much like StarCraft 2. So I want to throw that out there. Okay. So here's a couple ideas that I have about like what is more strategic. So first off, straight up, I think on average, StarCraft 2 players are way better when thinking about strategy. Like the way that StarCraft 2 players come up with strategy, I think is really superior to the vast majority of the way Brood War players do that. I think there's just like a lot more room to think of strategy in StarCraft 2 and to work on strategy in StarCraft 2 because the game is more manageable than StarCraft 1. Like a huge amount of your time in StarCraft 1 is just focusing on mechanical play. It kind of pays off better to work on mechanics a bit more than strategy in Brood War. And of course, that's like, it's not always the case. It's kind of like a step thing, right? Like work on mechanics a whole bunch, and then you got to raise your strategy to hit the next level. And then you got to work on your mechanics a whole bunch and raise your strategy to hit the next level. And that actually continues literally till championship quality, of course. And that exists to a certain degree in StarCraft 2, but certainly not to the same degree mechanically as in StarCraft 1. So I think that StarCraft 2 players are in general better at strategy. A lot of times the StarCraft 1 players, like the strategy will be lacking a little bit more. That's certainly not everyone. There's more strategic players and less strategic players. It's just like you have to have a certain level of mechanics to get to a certain level. In StarCraft 1 to even be a strategic player, right? But we do have strategic players like Shine. Flash and Sulky are tip-top level of strategy planning that I've ever seen in any StarCraft game. So like the thing is with the mechanics, that is a whole nother piece of strategy because no one plays mechanically perfectly in StarCraft 1. It's like just straight up impossible. And I mean, I could see someone trying to make an argument that that's impossible in StarCraft 2, but it's like if you look at a Serral game and you're like, okay, how do you macro better than that? It's like, okay, you could just slightly tiny, but like in Brood War, everyone can do a lot better in every single direction at all times. And of course, both games are infinite, but like because of the mechanics, Brood War has like a larger infinite that you can go in, if that makes sense. Okay, so that the fact that it's so mechanically hard, that comes into the strategy really heavily that you have in StarCraft 1, where, for instance, like a lot of strategy that is utilized in StarCraft 1 can be things that tries to get your opponent to make more mistakes. And of course that can exist in StarCraft 2 as well, but you're like, if you do 3 different things at the same time to your opponent, they are going to suffer in certain areas. Okay. Also, like when you have to decide when it's correct to actually pay attention to your units, because for instance, you have to jump back to macro, especially in a bigger game. Like in a smaller game, like let's say that you're just playing Mutalisks, right? Like a three hatchery Mutalisk strategy. You can micro your mutas and not leave that screen forever, pretty much, unless you're making drones. And you can just like go through hotkeys and like do like, 3S, 4SM, 5SM, and you can macro on that screen. But as the game gets bigger, you can't do that anymore. Because you simply don't have enough hotkeys. You can't bind the multiple buildings. So you have to really actually decide, if I have 5 factories and I'm microing my groups and I have a couple comsats hotkeyed, the odds of me macroing 5 factories on my hand is going to be much lower. So it's like hard to stay there and look at your army the whole time. So that's like, that becomes part of the strategy where like, okay, how much time and effort do I want to put into this versus the macro and getting all of that up? But the thing is, yeah, a lot of the actual strategy building, I feel like isn't oftentimes as complex. Well, it's complex in a different way. Again, I guess I have to go back to exactly what I said before, because it's hard to express what I mean by this, but I feel like the StarCraft 2 players are better at thinking about strategy. Like the strategies are more thought out. Like I'll find less holes when I'm commentating each game. I'll find less holes in the StarCraft 2 player derived strategy than I'll find in a StarCraft 1 player derived strategy. Like there's like so many decisions that they're trying to make there, and it's mechanically the game is going in a certain direction. So it kind of feels like that way. So I think this could be a good way to say it as well. Like StarCraft 2 is more strategic, not because it has more strategy, but because it has less mechanics. So because you can kind of like do a lot, and yes, I know there's things like jumping back for warp gates and stuff and warping in on position, all that. Yes, I get it. But like, because it's less mechanical, you are kind of like working on strategy a little bit more in StarCraft 2, I would say. But I don't think it's actually a more strategic game. And I think that you can see that reflected in like the very, very best Brood War players, where like if you look at the strategies that Sulky has been using, for instance, and obviously he was a GSL champion in StarCraft 2 as well, but like if you look at strategically what he's doing, mechanically he's like the best, and then you look at strategically what he's doing, it's like, oh my god, it's like so next level. It's so unbelievably deep. It's really hard for players to ever get to the level where they can flex that type of strategy. And the thing is, if you're using strategy to cover up the weakness of mechanics, that can become a problem as well. Where it's like, okay, Shine, who is also a pro gamer and has been to the finals of an ASL, he'll have some of the best strategies you've ever seen, but it's almost kind of cheesy in a way, because his brute force mechanics are not quite the level of someone like Hero or Sulky with Zerg. So if the strategy starts to fail, he's going to be in a lot of trouble, right? So that's kind of what my thought is as far as the strategy of the 2 games going at it. I don't know. Well, I do know. That's what I think. So yeah, let me know what you think, if you agree with that assessment or not. All right. One quick story as well. I want to throw this out there because this is actually kind of funny. Back during like StarCraft 2 days, like maybe around 2000, I don't know, let's call it 2015, 2000. Yeah, somewhere around there, 2014, 2015. You know, I wasn't playing any StarCraft 1. Tasis had been playing StarCraft 1 again on like the Korean servers and stuff. And we were on an airplane together. And he actually was telling me that StarCraft 1 is not less strategic than StarCraft 2. And I'm like, no. StarCraft 2 is more strategic and StarCraft 1 is more mechanical. And we argued and argued and argued. And I was like, dude, no, you just like StarCraft 1. You're a StarCraft 1 fanboy. And so, like, I do have to admit, and I've admitted to him since that happened, now that I spend a lot of time with both games, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, it's not less strategic. It's different how it functions, but yeah, he was right there. Okay, anyways, that's it. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching.